Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we're going to discuss some chores and tasks to make sure to complete during the month of May. Let's get going. Regardless of where you live in the Northern Hemisphere, May is the month that will get our summer gardens in the ground. So for the purposes of this video, we are going to assume that your main crops have already been planted. So with that being said, let's take a look at a few things to get done in the month of May. In May, you're going to start seeing some holes in your plants. You're going to start seeing little bites here and there, maybe some discoloration. And if you look at the bottom of your early spring vegetables, you're going to start seeing a lot of eggs. So I bring all of this up to say it is time to start implementing your pest solutions. For us here at the Garden Hutch, what we do is a regimen of neem oil. We mix it in a backpack sprayer. We put neem oil, Dawn dishwashing liquid, and water. We use that to spray for almost everything. The neem oil handles powdery mildew. It also handles a lot of the eggs. The problem is that the eggs and things from a lot of these critters are going to be on the bottom side of the leaves. And as we know, it's hard to kind of get in there this time of year because the plants are so low. If you have raised beds, it might be a little bit easier. So what we do is when the plants are small, I will load up the backpack sprayer and we'll use that for our fruit trees and for, like things in the beds, our strawberry plants, that sort of thing. But to get on the bottom side of our melons and our squashes, I just use a little 16-ounce spray bottle. I mix it up in the big, 2-gallon backpack sprayer. And then what I'll do is I'll just take the little nozzle off and I'll fill up a 16-ounce sprayer. I'll go through the whole garden, spraying the tops of everything to make sure that any of the aphids and things that are on the top will get there. And also the neem oil is a preventative, right? So once you get the neem oil on there, those little bite-on bugs, they won't come through and eat on your plants until the rain washes that off. And because it's an oil, which is water resistant, it'll stay on there for a good 7 to 10 days, unless you have a torrential downpour. We have a lot of those here in the South, but if you have a torrential downpour, you may have to do it a little earlier, but we do ours on a 10-day regimen, and that works out really well. Another thing to consider is DE, and I know I use it all the time. I say it all the time, I'm sorry. The diatomaceous earth, it works wonders, especially for ground residing insects. So especially our squash and our melons, which are susceptible to the boreworms. We put those on there and we don't have any issues. Now, last year, we did have a few of the boreworms get into our squashes and things, but a lot of that had to do with the weather last year. Every time you put the DE out, it seemed like it would rain every 2 to 3 days, and we just could not compete with the rain to keep it on there. So this year, we're going to be a little bit more diligent. I've shown earlier the way that we use our little powder bottle to get the DE on there. So that's something I bring with me daily when I do my garden walk. So I just walk through the garden, I have all the stuff with me, and that way I can address it ASAP. So again, early May is a great time to start your pest regimen. I wanted to show this here. You can see these guys. This is an eggplant, and it got eaten up pretty good. This happened over the course of about 36 hours. We had some rain that washed the DE off of these guys that we use to treat our eggplants. It washed it off, and in about 36 hours, those little flea beetles got in and ate these leaves up pretty good. We put some more DE on them, and you can see it's starting to recover. If you look on the inside there, starting to get new leaves and things. And we say this a lot here at the Garden Hutch, but you'll be really surprised at how resilient your plants are. They can get eaten down like this, and then you'll get rid of the critters. A couple weeks, these guys will be right back into shape. Early May is also a great time to begin your fertilizer regimen. Now here at the Garden Hutch, what we try to do is we try to get all of our plants on sort of the same time schedule. The way we decide when to start fertilizing our plants is when they start flowering. That's for, our melons and our tomatoes, peppers, squash, all of those. When they start flowering, that's when we'll start fertilizing them. Our potatoes, we also start fertilizing them in early May, whenever they get about 24 inches or so before their first healing. So what we like to do is we like to fertilize our potatoes right before we hill them, and then we'll fertilize them again heavily before we put the straw on them. And I'll make a video each time I do that to sort of show everybody, and then at the end of the year I'll put that together as sort of a, you know, an overall growing potato guide. Potatoes are something we're really excited about, I'm sure you can tell. But it's really important this time of year to start your fertilization process, especially if you're using organic fertilizer. I know a lot of you that watch the show or know what I'm going to say, but when you put organic fertilizer in your soil, it takes about 3 to 5 weeks, depending on how many microbes you have working, for those organic fertilizers to be readily available for your plants. So what we like to do is we use the compost. We make sure we're nice and fertilized throughout the fall, winter, and into the spring. So when the plants go in the ground, they're going to have a lot of fertilizer. As soon as we see those flowers, or as soon as the potatoes get to a certain height, etc., we know that plant is going to start using a whole lot of minerals and nutrients from the soil. So that's why it's important at the first sign of the flowers to start that regimen. So here at the Garden Hutch, our squashes and melons, they get fertilized every 3 weeks from the first flower, which just so happens opened up today. So let's take a look at those. Well, I noticed yesterday that we started to get the flowers here on our zucchini. These are the first ones here at the top. And you can see these are all male flowers that are opening right now. We do have females down there at the bottom as well. So before long, by, you know, I don't know, third week or so of May, we'll be eating zucchini. And anybody who knows zucchini knows you'll be eating that for quite some time. So this is what we look for. So you can see, even though it's only the male flowers, you can see the female flowers haven't opened yet. But as soon as we get those first ones open, we will take these, we will start our fertilizing process. We will also take these flowers and fill them with cream cheese, put some herbs in the cream cheese, and then batter and fry them real quickly. Oh my gosh, they are delicious. Early May is also the time to start weeding your gardens. Now, this is something you're going to do from now until the first freeze, probably, when it kills everything off. Weeding is just part of gardening, and anybody who watches this channel knows I hate weeding. I do everything I can to prevent weeds, and yet they're still here. So one of the things we do to prevent the weeds, or at least make weeding easier, I guess, is to cover our beds in straw. Now, we don't do that in the big garden that we saw earlier, because that'll just encourage the chickens to get in there and then they scratch up all your plants and it's a pain in the rear end. But for the gardens behind us, the top garden back here that's fenced in, or our pallet beds that have fencing around the top, we definitely cover them with straw. All it does is it just prevents a lot of the seeds and things from landing on the soil. And some of the seeds won't even germinate if they're on top of the straw instead of the soil. And the ones that do, the root systems are so loose because it's going through the straw that they're super easy to pull out. It just so happens that I did save a few. I want you to kind of see what I'm talking about whenever I say the straw prevents it. So I've saved a few weeds, and we'll go through and look at those real fast. So I saved this one little weed here so that you all could see it. You can see it right here. It's coming up through the straw. And I just wanted you to see, you can just go to the bottom of the straw and it comes right out of the ground like so. Again, having the straw in the ground makes things much easier. There's another one right there. Take it. And it just comes right up out of the ground. You can see a lot of times, because only that part of the root, that little bitty piece, was actually in the soil, it comes right up and you won't have to worry about it for the rest of the year. Also, some straw will have a few small grassy, look, there's one right there. A little bit of the seed from the hay that was taken off the top of it may fall down whenever it's bundled up. And you can see it also comes right out of the ground. The problem is, if you allow that to get established and you don't touch it for the year, by the time the next year rolls around, you are going to have a mess on your hands. So again, start early, do it often, and your gardens will thank you for it. As we approach mid-May, temperatures are going to start reaching into the 80s. In our region, they'll get to the 90s. In fact, the first week of May this year is supposed to be all low 90s. So What that means is you're eventually going to need to water. So what we recommend doing here at the Garden Hutch is early in May, stretching out all your water hoses, getting everything set up, find out if you have any leaks or if you need any new equipment. The reason is by the end of May, every gardener is going to be heading to the garden centers to pick up what they need. The earlier you do it, the better selection you're going to have. A lot of times you can miss the crowds, and you might even be able to catch a sale or two for those retail establishments that are looking to bring gardeners in early. By the middle of May, when it comes time to start watering, that is not the time that you want to be testing your equipment, right? So what we do, again, we've already stretched our hoses out. We've made sure we have enough of them. We hooked them up to the water spigots to make sure there were no leaks, that we didn't need to replace any seals or anything. It's also a great time to make sure there was no winter wear on your outdoor faucet. So down by the fruit trees, we have a freeze-proof, sticks out of the ground handle for watering. And a lot of times it can leak over the winter time because of the way it's designed. So you have to go through and you'll have to tighten up, you have to tighten the bolts up here and there to make sure that they're not leaking. That'll save you a lot of water over the course, or a lot of water. It'll save you a lot of money, over the course of the year. And it's also a little bit more, friendly to the community, not wasting water and that sort of thing. But by the time, if you do it now and you prepare, by the time you need it in mid-May, even if you don't need it till the 1st of June, you're not going to be upset that you took the time to ensure your watering system was in place and functioning. Mid-May is also the perfect time to make sure your gardens are weatherproofed, or as weatherproofed as you can, I should say. Here in Arkansas, in May and early June, we have very high winds associated with thunderstorms. We'll also get like really heavy downpours, deluges almost. And if your plants are not tied up, if they're not staked, or if there's not wind barriers in place, a lot of times what will happen is your plants will either get beaten down from a heavy rain, or they'll get blown over if they weren't prepared correctly from the greenhouse, if they weren't hardened off, and if they didn't have a good root system whenever they were put in. So what we like to do is, once mid-May hits, we like to go through, like our tomatoes, for example. We'll trim the bottom parts of our tomatoes to make sure nothing's touching the ground, and then we'll tie them up to the stakes. We'll do the same thing with our peppers, with our eggplants, with our melons. As soon as they're big enough, we'll try to get them onto the trellises, which will prevent a lot of the wind damage from them. So let's take a look at the tomatoes. So for those of you who watched our planting the garden video, you know that we put our stakes in before our plants, so that what we don't want to do is have the plant in the ground, put the stake in behind it, and then disturb the root system. So we have ours in about 2 weeks before we plant our tomatoes, so the dirt and such can settle behind them. So now, once mid-May reaches, you can see how much these things have grown already in just, it's been about 10, 12 days since we put them in the ground. All of these smaller limbs here at the bottom, we'll take all of those off. We'll trim it up to, probably right about here. And then what we'll do is we'll make sure that we tie this to this stake back here behind it. And it only needs about 6 more inches or so. You don't want to do it when it's small so that you're pulling it, way back. But once it gets about, about 6 more inches or so, you can take a string, tie it from about midway here to your stake, and that'll prevent any of your high winds from blowing your tomatoes over. We have already had winds upwards of 58 to 60 miles an hour, and there's more planned for this month coming our way. So it's imperative, if you want to have a crop that you can rely on, that you take time to prevent weather damage to your plants. So we'll stay on the topic of weather for just another moment. What we like to do here at the Garden Hutch is May, mid-May, late May, early June, there's a lot of water around here. It brings a lot of fungus and a lot of mildew. So again, if we're doing the regimen with the neem oil, it'll take care of most of that. But what you want to do is make sure you are on the lookout for powdery mildew, any sorts of fungus or anything that are resistant to your neem oil. It's super simple if you get them. It's not hard, but they will kill your plants. So if you get something like powdery mildew, for example, just doing something as easy as just slightly changing the pH on the leaf will kill it off. We do that with a combination of, we'll use vinegar the first time, and that'll make it a bit more acidic. And then what we'll do is we will use baking soda the second time, and that'll bring it back to the basic side. So let's just say, for example, your squash plant gets powdery mildew. We'll just take a little 16-ounce hand sprayer. We'll mix it with a little bit of Dawn dishwashing liquid, some apple cider vinegar, and water. We'll just take it out, spray the powdery mildew. I don't know, 24, 36 hours later, the powdery mildew will be gone. But when you've done that with the vinegar, what you've done is you've changed the pH level of that leaf. So all you need to do is the next time, just take a different 16-ounce bottle, mix it with baking soda, Dawn, water, spray that same, if it gets, that same plant, if it gets powdery mildew again, just spray it with the baking soda, and again, it'll change the pH. And believe it or not, that slight pH change is enough to take care of things like fungus or powdery mildew. Keeping on the theme of weather, it's starting to get warm. We mentioned it earlier, especially here in Arkansas. In May, towards the end especially, it could reach mid-90s by the end of May here. So we're coming from the spring where it's been, highs in the 60s, low 70s, and it rapidly goes from that to heat, to the 89, 90 degrees. Here in our area, it also comes with humidity. I bring all of this up to say, make sure you don't press yourself. It is super easy to get outside, push yourself too far, and have heat-related either injuries or illness. It doesn't have to be heat stroke, but if you get your immune system down too low, then you're susceptible to a whole bunch of other things. So do yourself a favor, as you see the temperature increasing and the humidity increasing, make sure that you time your garden activity so that you're not out there for more than a couple hours at a time. Make sure you're drinking plenty of fluids, using sunscreen, and if it's like way sunny, just put on a shade hat or something. Everybody loves those old school gardener big brim hats. Get yourself one of those. It makes gardening a lot more enjoyable, and it'll prevent you from accidentally overextending yourself. Well, as always, I want to say thank you to you folks that have stuck with us till the end. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel. It goes a long way in helping us out. You can hit the little bell icon and YouTube will notify you when we upload new content. Also, if we didn't cover your favorite chore or task for May, let us know in the comments below. Until next time, I hope that you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.